Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we're going to be talking about some more favorites from 2023. So first I want to apologize for the lighting. I don't know why, it's doing something weird. We're just going with it, but it's a little like washed out and shadowy, I don't know. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about some books that I absolutely loved in 2023 that just didn't quite make my top favorites of the year. I did a top 10 with 3 honorable mentions in my set top 10 video, so I will link that down below if you haven't seen it yet. But this video I'm going to be talking about, I think, 6 more books that I absolutely loved in 2023. They just didn't quite make my top 10. So the first one that I'm going to mention is For the Fans by Nyla K. I adored this stepbrothers romance. These two brothers, this romance starts right when they met when they're children. They are little kids and it goes all the way to when they're in college and they start their romance. This is a long book, which is part of the reason why it didn't make my top favorites. I did feel like it was a little long. Sometimes when I read a book and it's a long book, it doesn't feel long, and that's why I don't mind. It could be a million pages and I wouldn't mind because it doesn't feel long. This one did feel a little bit long, which is why I did dock a little bit of points from it, but this one I still absolutely loved. The two boys in this one's named are Kyron and Avi, and their parents get married and they become stepbrothers, and their romance starts when the two of them are in college and they are enemies. That is something that's throughout the entire story. Since they meet each other, they are very different people. Avi is a very artsy, creative type, and Kyron is very strict. He is a sports player. I don't remember what sport he plays, but he is very popular, and Avi's kind of a weirdo on the side, and so they don't really get along, but they are trying to stay in college when their father loses his money. They are no longer wealthy and can't afford to pay for college, and so college is now on the two of them to pay for. And so they end up making an OnlyFans account in order to make money to stay in college, and the content in an OnlyFans is more popular, and so Avi enlists Kyron's help and the two of them make sexual online content in order to pay for college, and the two of them fall in love. They're super attracted to each other and they end up having a really amazing romance, and I really loved this. I definitely want to read more from Nyla K, especially more books. I know she has a Alabaster Penitentiary book. I included her in my top authors to read in 2024 video, so I'll link that one down below if you haven't seen it either. That one I talked mostly about new to me authors, but I did include Nyla K because I've only read this one book from her and I really want to read more from her because I did absolutely love this book and I would highly recommend it. I would also recommend the audiobook. I think it did it really well. The next one that I have is a Chloe Lease. I think it's crazy to go a year without including a Chloe Lease on top favorites, and this is the one that she released for her Bergman Brothers series in 2023. This is Ziggy and Sebastian's book, and I loved this so much. This one, Ziggy is a professional soccer player and Sebastian is a hockey player, and he is her brother Ren's best friend on her brother Ren's hockey team. And Sebastian is kind of a bad boy, and Ziggy is thought of as this very perfect, always follows the rules kind of person, and Ziggy really wants to be taken more seriously. She herself feels really mature, but people still look at her as this like young girl, and she wants them to take her seriously, and so she kind of wants to rough up her reputation, and Sebastian needs to tone down his reputation, and so they decide to make a fake friendship in order to make Sebastian's reputation better and Ziggy's reputation a little bit worse. And so they start planning friendship dates to be seen together, and they end up creating this actual real friendship and then falling in love, and it was so cute and so sweet. I really related to both characters. Ziggy's in her wanting to be taken more seriously, especially when you are like the younger one and with your family, when you feel like you've gotten so much older but your family still sees you as like a young kid and you're like, I'm an adult now, I can handle it. And I really related to that aspect of Ziggy. And then with Sebastian, he in this book gets diagnosed with celiac disease, and while I don't have celiac disease, I have a severe gluten intolerance, and so I have very much related to the way he was going through and not wanting to eat anything for fear of your stomach hurting because you don't know what's going on. And he actually gets diagnosed in this book, and he gets diagnosed older, trying to be so terrified of eating anything and finally going to your doctor and your doctor finally figuring out what's wrong. I really related to him in that aspect, and I just really, really loved how sweet their friendship became and then their romance. There's a scene in this book where Ziggy is really bookish. She reads a lot of romance books, and the dates that Sebastian creates are fabulous. Like there's a bookstore date, and I just think it's so great. And then there's a scene for Halloween when Sebastian dresses up as her favorite romance book hero. I swooned so aggressively. I loved it so, so much, and this was just a fabulous romance. I love the Bergman Brothers series, and this was a fantastic installment. The next one that I have is Hail Mary by Candy Steiner. Blindside by Candy Steiner, which is part of this series, was on my top favorite books of 2022. I loved that book so, so much, and when I read Hail Mary in the beginning of 2023, I loved it so, so much, and it almost made my top favorites of the year. I do like Blindside a little bit more. That's still my favorite in the series, which is kind of why this one just didn't make my top 10, but I still absolutely love this book. This one follows the hero whose name is Leo, and he is a football player on the team of this college, and his next door neighbor, the heroine's, I can't remember her name. Her name's Mary. I'm an idiot. So the heroine Mary lives next door to Leo, and she doesn't go to college. She's actually a tattoo artist, which I thought was super, super cool. I loved that. And her house has some issues, and she ends up having no place to live, and Leo offers her to move into his house next door because they have an open room for the summer, and he's like, we have space, you wouldn't have to move very far, you just move in with us. And Mary has no other options, and so she agrees, but Mary actually hates Leo for something Leo doesn't remember, or she doesn't realize that he doesn't really remember. So Mary and Leo actually knew each other when they were younger at school, and Mary is very, very angry for something that happened when they were in school, and Leo doesn't remember her, and she's pissed about that. But she reluctantly moves in with him, and he is trying to get her to like him. He doesn't know why she doesn't like him, and so they end up developing this really amazing romance. I loved it so much, and I thought Mary was a really, really cool character. I like the way that Candy Steiner writes a lot of her heroines, and Mary was one of my top favorites. I still love Gianna from Blindside, but Mary was fabulous, and this book was just all around so, so good, and I would highly recommend this whole series. Quarterback Sneak is my least favorite in the series, and I don't love that one, so I actually think that you could skip that one, but I do love Fair Catch, Blindside, and Hail Mary, so highly recommend. The next one that I have is actually a duet, and it's the Pack Darling duet by Lola Rock. This one is an Omega-verse reverse harem romance, and in the first book in this duet, the heroine is a ward of the state, basically. She has no family, she's an Omega, and she grows up in this Omega center, and she ends up getting blackmailed by these very rich guys into joining their son's pack. But their sons do not want her in their pack. They already have a male Omega, and they do not want a female Omega. They love their male Omega, but their fathers want them to breed in order to like pass on their very rich, very powerful name. And so their fathers blackmailed the heroine into joining their pack. and the heroes don't know that their fathers blackmailed her, and so they're hate her. They hate her so much, and they're so awful to her. And the first book is very much a bully romance of them trying to get her to leave and not wanting her in their pack. And then she ends up going into heat, and they find out that she actually is their maid, and that they have to spend the entirety of the second book groveling in order to make up for the horrible things that they did to her in book one. And it's so good. I was really addicted to this romance, and it's one of ones that I read very early on in the year. I think I read it in like February, and it stuck with me for a really long time. Like, I really loved this book, especially the second one. I gave the second one 5 stars, when the first one I think I gave like 4 stars, maybe 4.5, I don't remember, but I definitely gave the second one 5 stars. And I love the way that in the second one, they really readjust their entire lives to make up for what they did wrong to her. They realize that it was a them problem, and they work on themselves, like seriously work on themselves in order to be good enough to get her back. And they go to therapy. They really have much more open communication. They work so hard in order to get her back, and the groveling was like top tier groveling, and I loved this duet so much. This is a debut, I believe, because I think that this was Lola Rock's like first 2 books. She has a new book now that I haven't read yet, that just recently came out, but I think that these were her like first 2 ever books, and they were so good, and I really loved them, and I just needed to include them in a favorites of the year video because I really did love them, and I think more people should read them. Then I have to include a book from the Perfectly Imperfect series. This was a series that I included on my favorite series of 2023 video. So again, I'll link that video down below if you haven't seen it. But this is a mafia romance series which entirely features damaged heroes and really great heroines. And I loved this series. I read the entire series in 2023. I read the 8 books that are currently out in the series, and they're all so good. But I wanted to mention my favorite one in the series, which is Stolen Touches. So Stolen Touches is about the heroine whose name is, I think it's Milena, something like that. I'm gonna go with Milena. And this one, she wants to be a nurse. She's a nurse, and she grew up in a mafia family but does not want to be associated with her mafia family. She doesn't want to be part of it. And so without telling her brother, who is the head of the mafia in the city that she's from, or the mafia leader in the city that she's moving to, she moves to, I think, New York City in order to be a nurse there. And when the head of the mafia in the city that she moves to finds out that she's there, he is upset, but he requires her to marry him, basically, as like punishment for moving there. And they have a arranged forced marriage on her part. She does not want to marry him, but she has to. And the hero, whose name I can't remember, he is super damaged. He is kind of a little bit psychopathic. He is not somebody who the people in his life ever thought would be like sweet to somebody, never thought that he would love somebody, but he softens so much for the heroine. He is like definitely alpha mellow, like serious alpha badass hero around everyone else, but for her, he is so sweet to her, and it's so good. And he has some sort of disability. I can't remember what his disability is, but I know that he struggles with certain things. And when his like mom sees the heroine helping him, she is shocked because she never thought that he would ever let somebody help him, because he never wants to like be thought of as like weak for his disability. And it's so good and so sweet, and I loved this so much. So I highly recommend this book in the series, but also the whole series. Like, it's so good, and so many books in the series are like 4 and 5 stars. fabulous series, but this one was my favorite. The last one that I'm going to talk about in this video, I had to include Saint by Sierra Simone. I loved this book. So I read Priest in 2021, I think, or maybe 2022. I really can't remember, but it was okay. Like, I think I gave it 4 stars. I liked the story of it, but I wasn't a big fan of the romance in that one. But I loved Sierra Simone's writing, so I knew I wanted to read more from Sierra Simone, and one day I was just really in the mood to read Saint, and I picked it up and I read it in like a day and a half. I was loving this book. It's so emotional, and the writing is just absolutely stunning. And I'm not a religious person. I did not grow up religious. I've never been to church. My family is not religious whatsoever, but I love the way that one of the heroes in this book, Aiden, I think is his name, talks about the way that religion helped him through the hard times. I thought it was so incredibly beautiful and such an amazing part of religion to be able to do this. So basically, this 3-book series, the Bell Brothers series, are all about the 3 brothers' reactions to their sister's suicide. Their sister, when she was younger, was assaulted by their priest, and she committed suicide. And each book in the series is the brothers' reaction and like the way that they coped with their sister's suicide. So in Priest, the first book, the hero in that one, he became a priest in order to try and fix the institution, in order to try and be better, make the church better. And in Sinner, he completely ditched religion and entirely. He was like, religion's terrible. In this one, the hero's name is Aiden, and he has been in a relationship with this guy for a long time. They have a very good relationship, but Aiden suffers from depression and anxiety, and he has one really, really bad night, and he ends up leaving and joining a monastery and becoming a monk. This monastery happens to brew their own beer, and so it's a couple of years later, and his ex-boyfriend shows up because he's writing a story about the monks that brew their beer, and he sees Aiden, and the two of them end up going on this journey together, and Aiden, he's about to take his final vows to be a monk, but he does still love his ex-boyfriend, whose name I can't remember. But Aiden is very much struggling with his mental health, and he has found solace and found peace at this monastery, and he very much grapples with the idea of leaving, and if he leaves, how that's going to affect his mental health, if he's not at this monastery anymore, if he is not in his peace anymore. And it is a really, really amazing romance and really, really amazing story of Aiden and his struggles with mental health and his struggles of what to do. Does he stay and become a monk, or does he go with the love of his life? And it was such a beautiful romance. I loved this so, so, so much. It really almost made my top 10 or my honorable mentions. I went back and forth so much of whether to like include this in my honorable mentions and like make a 4th honorable mention, but this one I loved so much. I highly recommend it, especially if you're somebody who struggles with depression or anxiety. The way that they discuss it in this book is so beautiful. It's so relatable, and just like wanting to do anything that you can to find your inner peace. And I loved Aiden so much, and I would highly recommend this book. That's the last one that I was going to talk about. I loved so many books in 2023, but I just wanted to discuss a few more than my 13 that I talked about in my other video. So I would highly recommend all of these books, but like this video if you liked it, subscribe, stick around and see more content from me, and let me know down in the comments if you loved any of these books or read any of these books, and if you agree with me, I guess, and leave me a purple heart emoji because purple is my favorite color and these are favorite books. But I hope that you have the absolute best day. Bye.